Sexual transmutation has made me multiples of millions of dollars since I discovered the concept of sexual transmutation in the book Think and Grow Rich back in 2004. By applying sexual transmutation, I was able to get out of $50,000 debt, which was my first definite chief aim. I was able to move up in my corporate career, cultivate public speaking skills, improve my relationships, my health, my fitness. And in 2009, I left and started an IT business, which I built a success. And in 2013, I transitioned away from it and I moved into consulting and also started another YouTube channel, not this one here, but my other YouTube channel, which has over 400,000 subscribers. And I can honestly say that sexual transmutation was a huge driving factor. This is what I would like to explore with you today. And I would like to discuss this in a way that I do not see discussed online or through the various blogs that I've read pertaining to the topic. So thank you very much for your question. I saw it this morning and I said it would be a great idea to discuss it, where you asked me if I could speak about sexual transmutation because I did bring it up in a recent video. Also, I will be answering the other questions that I saw in the comments, and if you're interested in me answering any questions, you could leave one in the comment section and we can explore in an upcoming video. Now, in the book Think and Grow Rich, he talks about how you could take sexual energy, which is a powerful energy. Some can say the most powerful form of energy, which can, although be translated or transmuted into sexual relationships, it can also be transmuted into creative expressions. It can also be transmuted into prospecting, lead generation, client acquisition, and ongoing business with existing clients. Essentially the sales, the marketing, and the innovation. So that is primarily where I transmuted the sexual energy. And we'll talk about how to do it based on personal experience. So you may or may not have come across the word transmute before, so let's explore that. It was actually in Think and Grow Rich when I discovered this word, which tracks its roots back to ancient alchemy. He says the meaning of the word transmute is, in simple language, the changing or transferring of one element or form of energy into another. So any kind of energy, you could take that energy that is flowing through you, that is building up, and rather than suppressing or repressing this powerful energy or any energy, you can transmute it into a creative expression. An example would be if, let's say, someone is walking down the street and they see someone that they feel sexual chemistry towards. They can either walk over to that person and start a conversation with them because they feel attracted to the individual, or they could say things to themselves like, they're not good enough, the person will reject me, or something like that. Make up some kind of story in mind, even though genuinely what they desire to do is walk over and start a conversation. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to ask this person to engage in a sexual activity with them, but it is a driving force that will initiate the walking over and starting a conversation. Now, if the individual has suppressed or repressed the burning desire or sexual desire, then they, and I've worked with individuals like this for whatever the reason, the particular beliefs, religious dogma, they don't seem to have that compelling desire to walk over and start the conversation. It's really hard for them to walk over and start the conversation, even though there might be a little bit of desire. For some reason, they were suppressing or repressing the sexual energy, and so now it's really hard for them to walk over and start the conversation. So with individuals like this, when I've worked with them over the years, what we do is we release identification to those dogmatic beliefs of suppressing and repressing desire, considering it to be bad or shameful. And what naturally then happens is the individual connects back to their sexual energy. And if they see someone they're interested in starting a conversation with, they feel chemistry towards the person, it is a lot easier for them to walk over and start the conversation. Also, in their dating life and in relationships, it is easier for them to talk about their sexuality. It is easier for them to share what they're interested in. And also, as a result, the relationship, which ends up being mutually harmonious as a result of this kind of open conversation regarding sexuality, continues to grow and thrive. So we can look at that as a form of physical expression. Like Napoleon Hill says in the book, the emotion of sex has back of it the possibility of three constructive potentialities. Number one, the perpetuation of humanity. So essentially, you see someone you're interested in, you start a conversation with them, there's chemistry, it grows into love, it can turn into a long-term relationship, etc., etc. Number two, the maintenance of hell. He says, as a therapeutic agency, it has no equal. And then number three, the transformation of mediocrity into genius through transmutation. This is what I would like to explore with you today. So just as you can harness that powerful sexual energy to initiate conversations with those that you're attracted to, and also it doesn't mean that you have to walk over and start the conversation. Those that do not suppress or repress their sexual energy have a high degree of charisma, personal magnetism, and attractiveness, and find that individuals actually come up to them and start conversations with them, DM them, etc. And they might not know why. They might not know why, but a lot of it has to do with sexual energy. Naturally, we feel attracted to someone that radiates sexual energy. Naturally, as we radiate sexual energy, we find that people are attracted to us. For years, I practiced something called semen retention. Now, there's many nuances with respect to sexual transmutation. We're going to explore a number of them in this video, and if you would like to explore any nuance, you can leave a question if you would like. I have a lot of experience in this area, and I've worked with many individuals in this area. So one of the areas that I practice sexual transmutation in is semen retention. Semen retention is essentially retaining your semen. Now, what happens is the individual has a buildup of sexual energy, and as they're retaining their semen, the sexual energy is building up even more so. So this can be very troubling for some. And so they may then start to suppress or repress that sexual energy. And so what I teach is you can transmute that buildup of sexual energy into a creative expression. It actually happens naturally. What I have found is I have creative ideas emerge, creative solutions for seeming challenges or problems. Creative ideas just emerge in mine. And I can credit that over to semen retention, and more specifically, the building up of the sexual energy and harnessing it, and then allowing the creative ideas to show up and then creatively express them. It could be an invention, an innovation, or it could be something that you come up with that you share in a conversation with a prospect, which ends up converting into a client. Another way, as I mentioned earlier, that I transmuted this sexual energy that was building up was I found that I had the drive, you can say that, or the inertia, or it was very compelling for me to actively go out and meet new prospects. During conversations, I would find that, not in a force-based way, but I would be more present. my energy was, you could say, more magnetic and more calmer, but very powerful. There's a wonderful book called The Charisma Myth by Olivia Fox Cabane. In there, she says that through all her research, power, presence, and warmth are attributes that make up a charismatic or magnetic individual. One can practice semen retention for longer durations or the long term. Many people that I've explored online who discuss semen retention have their own reasons as to why they do it. And so we're talking about here how to make money or generate income or grow your business or transmute that energy into creative expression. Again, based on my personal experience, I can speak about this particular area. So essentially, what we're doing is we're allowing that energy to build up, and then rather than suppressing or repressing it, we transmute it or we move it through the body, and it compels us to start the conversations with the prospect. During the conversation, the exploratory conversations, as I talk about in my book, if you're interested in a copy of my book here, The Direct Path to $1 Million, Turn What You Already Have into a Fortune, I'll link in the description to it on Amazon. What happens is during the exploratory conversations, as I refer to in the book, you naturally, without force, demonstrate the particular benefits in a way that's compelling. And it is apparent in your voice tonality, in your body language, and also creative ideas just emerge in mind of how to communicate. And I find that this is a lot more pronounced or a lot more apparent or a lot more potent while practicing sexual transmutation. So not only did I practice semen retention, what I also did was in the relationships that I was in, and he'll talk about this, we'll get into this in a moment, the combination of love and sex together, and together it's something that you both discuss. I recommend engaging in a relationship where you can have a conversation about sexual transmutation, sexual energy, and together you can harness this to the mutual benefit, whatever. It'll actually benefit the relationship because the relationship will thrive. It'll be very interesting and a lot of fun. And also, both parties involved will be able to channel that energy to creative outlets. So it's not just about making money. It's also about artistic expression. And also, there are those that I've worked with that apply sexual transmutation so that they can be more confident, speak publicly and speak confidently publicly, and not by pretending to be confident, but this is a natural, compelling energy that manifests as what she talked about in the book: power, presence, and warmth, confidence, charisma, personal magnetism. So, as he had said, the perpetuation of mankind, number one, which we're not going to explore today. Number two, the maintenance of health, which I agree with. There are enormous amount of benefits of sexual transmutation and semen retention with respect to health. If you just go read up online of the many benefits that people are experiencing as a result of semen retention, and you try it out for yourself, you'll notice those benefits, as well as you'll discover your own benefits. So again, I can only speak from experience accurately, so I'm going to share my experience with respect to Think and Grow Rich. So number three, he said, the transformation of mediocrity into genius through transmutation. So all we're doing is we're taking the sexual energy, and for some of us, it might be really overwhelming to actually stimulate that sexual energy and build it up. For some of my clients, I recommend it, and there have been times in my life where I have done that as well, which can be facilitated through relationships, dating, many different ways. Some also have already a high sex drive. Generally, I find with those that I've worked with in their early 20s, that stimulating it might be very troubling for them, and that might just be too intense. So they can, rather than stimulate it, take that naturally building up sexual energy and transmute it to a creative expression. So again, the creative expression can be art, music, poetry, etc. As a matter of fact, you'll find that those that have created wonderful things in this world, and he talks about this in the book as well, have not suppressed or repressed sexual energy, but actually have a high sex drive, which they either they knew how this works or not, transmute it over to creative expression. And actually, what he has found as well is it was also inspired, not necessarily always the case, but was the case for me as well, inspired by their partner, their relationship. One way of looking at it is, in a way, they looked at it as, I'm going to transmute it to whatever kind of creative expression or making money or business growth, because that is what is going to enhance my relationship with this person. Whether they tell themselves a story like, then it'll make me more attractive, or this is how I would win this person over, or something like that. Whatever the kind of story you and your partner create, what it actually does is it associates that energy to why, to your why. You may have heard this many times in personal development, that those that have a powerful why, they find a way. This is also my personal experience of working with salespeople over the years, and also my personal experience. Those that have a powerful why will perform the prospecting sessions every day, whether it be 5 or 10 prospecting sessions, will engage in the sales conversations or the exploratory conversations, will come up with creative ways, not in a force-based way, but that powerful sexual energy is compelling them forward. So there's no laziness, which is just a result of suppressing and repressing and killing off desire, which there's no valid reason for that. So let's explore what he says about sexual transmutation here, transmuting it into creative expression or marketing or sales. As mentioned earlier, you can also take this energy. I've worked with individuals, they had a hard time going out and meeting people. And then by building up the sexual energy and by transmuting it, they found that they were more magnetic, they were more confident. It was easier for them to walk over and start a conversation. They noticed that there was chemistry in the conversation flows. All of a sudden, they're articulating and their conversations are calibrated and on point, and it's mutually beneficial for everyone that they're connecting with. And they end up getting dates, they end up getting involved in relationships, etc. And that is one way. That is what he was saying is, number one, the perpetuation of humanity. Another way is through creative expression. And again, creative expression can be art, whatever kind of art, can also be for day-to-day life. I've worked with individuals who found it was really hard to get out of bed in the morning and really hard to do the tasks around their house, like clean their house, clean their car, take care of themselves, go to the gym, etc. When we discovered that what they were doing was they were suppressing or repressing the sexual energy, or they were expressing it through masturbation, again, nothing wrong with masturbation, but they were expressing it that way excessively, they felt constantly drained and they didn't have any motivation. So I put them onto a program so that they can rebuild, so that they can build that sexual energy. And then they found that they would go to the gym, they would do their business initiatives, and even the way they carried themselves transformed. They demonstrated, naturally manifested that power, presence, and warmth. So he says sex desire is the most powerful of human desires. Now, this is up to the individual, but generally we find this to be the case. When driven by this desire, individuals, and he says men, but it's not based on gender, it's really individuals, as he says here. When driven by this desire, individuals develop, or we could say manifest, keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creativity, ability unknown to them at other times. And this is something that I notice in my life as well, prior to Think and Grow Rich and also practicing this, is while practicing sexual transmutation, while valuing it, what happened was I would be able to come up with creative ideas a lot easier. It would be so much easier to see seeming obstacles as opportunities. Rather than giving up when there was a challenge and running away from it, I actually found that I would move towards the challenge and find a creative way to transmute, we could say, that challenge into opportunity. He says, when harnessed and redirected along other lines, this motivating force maintains all of its attributes of keenness of imagination, courage, etc., which may be used as powerful creative forces in literature, art, or in any other profession or calling, including, of course, the accumulation of riches. So I want to focus on this more so, the accumulation of riches. Consider, as I mentioned, that what I did was I transmuted the sexual energy. I allow it to build up. I don't suppress or repress it. And I transmute it over to the accumulation of riches. How so? There was at times a relationship that I was in which we agreed upon, and we had our ways of going about doing it. And we agreed upon taking this energy and transmuting it for mutual benefit. It could be she was interested in artistic expression or business as well. And for me, it was primarily business. And what I noticed was the association, the why was, oh, this will improve our relationship. This will enhance our relationship. I do this for her. I do this for the wonderful life that we get to have together. I do this because it's a lot of fun or something like that, whatever. You can get into specifics and nuances. And then what I found is I would commit to doing, let's say, 5 prospecting sessions a day, and I would transmute that energy. Although the energy was still, at times, I was looking for the physical expression through her in sexual activity, I would, rather than suppress or repress it, I would allow that energy to be moved into initiating the prospecting sessions, having conversations with the client, having conversations with the leads and prospects, allowing that creative energy to draw from infinite intelligence, which happens naturally through that energy. Consider that also from infinite intelligence, a human being is created. New life form is created. Everything originates from the source. Through sexual transmutation, you are accessing that infinite intelligence in a powerful, compelling way. It's essentially subconsciously drawing whatever kinds of resources, relationships, opportunities, insights, and perspectives in a way that translates into acquiring more clients and coming up with creative ways to serve the existing clients, which is what we talk about on this channel and also my book. And these ideas, these ways, through the sexual energy transmutation, it's not like you're trying to figure it out. It's not like you're trying to draw these ideas. They just spontaneously emerge in your mind. They spontaneously show up. And one could say it's because the association of, okay, as I acquire these clients and I accumulate more money, then there's a part of the body, or the body is saying, okay, well, this is how you're going to have resources to build a family, etc. And again, as he had also said in the book, it was inspired through this mutual agreement that was in the relationship. So the sexual energy was transmuted into reaching out to prospects. Prior to sexual transmutation, when the sexual energy was depleted, I noticed that it wasn't as much of a drive to start. That why wasn't there. But when the why was there, and love is there, and that sexual energy is there, then what happens is it's associated to acquiring clients, and you naturally acquire the clients. The compelling creative energy, the sexual energy, compels all these ideas. And next thing you know, you're acquiring clients. You're also finding that more people are attracted to you to do business with you in some shape or form. One could say that they feel your energy is quite powerful and quite magnetic for prosperity. In other words, they may be thinking that this prosperity or this win streak that you have, which was stimulated by sexual transmutation, can also be transferred to them. As he had mentioned earlier, the meaning of the word transmute is, in simple language, the changing or transferring of one element or form of energy into another. So that sexual transmutation energy, that's another point, I find transfers. It actually amplifies the other individual's sexual energy. And as mentioned, it's not just for physical expression, it's also for enhancing creativity and creative expression. So the key is, rather than suppressing or repressing the sexual energy, trying to get rid of it, you actually transmute it over to taking the steps required to build your business, whatever they may be: prospecting, lead generation, creating content, sales, innovation, whatever it may be, leadership, the areas as I teach business: innovation, sales, marketing, operations, finance, leadership. There's no laziness. There's a natural compellingness, and it's not force-based. It's natural flow, power, presence, and warmth. And not only do you naturally take those steps, because I get asked these questions a lot. People ask me, should I take action? Should I not take action? See, everything happens naturally in flow. And through transmuting the sexual energy, that's not even a question anymore. You don't even ask that question. So also I want to relate this to, speaking of question, a question that was asked: hi, Joseph, can you do something about a creative who makes music solely for the love of it and the ability to emotionally impact others, being able to live of their art full time? Well, what we find is, if we put out any kind of art, whether it be music or you make videos or any kind of creative expression, people naturally come up to you and say something. They might not directly say, can you sell it to me? But they may say something that indicates that they know somebody, or there is a place or a particular venue or something like that where you could place your art, or you could feature your art, or you could talk about your art. What happens is people come up to you and they say, can you do that for me? Or can you come into my organization and do that? Or something like that. So what we find is those that genuinely, when they do what they love to do and they creatively express something that people are looking for, people respect that and say, I'll offer you compensation for it. I don't experience any people coming up to me and saying, oh, Joseph, can you do this for free, or something like that. That just might be a result of belief identification. If an individual believes that they can't get paid for what they're doing, then it might appear that way. Because consider this for a moment. Just as the beliefs in mind play out as theater, I talk about this in my subconscious mind program, just as those beliefs play out as theater, what is also playing out as theater, and this also relates to sexual transmutation, is your natural way. Your natural way is creatively expressing. You are, as I mentioned, and I talk about this on this channel and my other channel as well, you are that infinite love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. You are that pure awareness, and your real nature is what is called Ananda, Satchit Ananda. Ananda is bliss, or Ananda can be translated into happiness, joy, bliss, peace. That is the fundamental reality that every individual springs from. As you abide as you are, what naturally plays out is fundamental reality. And you can dissolve those beliefs that suggest otherwise. And the natural fragrance or the natural result of it is what happens is people show up to be in harmony with you. So they may say things like, would you be interested in placing your art on consignment at our restaurants? Would you be interested in doing a mural for us? Have you ever considered doing this as a performance? I have access to a venue and an audience. These kinds of things naturally emerge. And you love making music and you do it for the love of it. Consider that as we're talking about sexual energy, that sexual energy is naturally experienced by people. They might not know what that is because these kinds of conversations, we have it in on YouTube like this, but it's not talked about, that at least I've not seen it talked about, sexual transmutation in schools. They might not have had these kinds of conversations, so they don't know what's going on. So with sexual energy, they feel something and it's compelling and they're associating it to the business or the creative expression. The same is with love, with happiness, with peace, with bliss, with fulfillment. They experience your love creatively expressing, and they're interested in engaging with it more so in some shape or form. And so the way they say, I would like to engage with this love that you're infusing in it, is not necessarily by saying it that way, unless they understand what we're talking about here. But they may say, can you do it for us? Can you do it for my company? Can you do it for my family and friends or something like that? And then you know what's going on. So it's the natural result of doing what you love to do. And what ends up happening, and I've worked with many artists as well, and I've seen many artists, I've spoken to many along the way. I go to art shows, ones that have turned their art into career, and also musicians and producers, etc., is what they found was they just love making the music, and the natural result of it is they're asked to perform in venues. They get people who show up and partner with them. They may start YouTube channels or Instagram or something like that, or TikTok. And again, people are appreciating that love that's in there, and they're relating to that art in a loving way, I can say it that way. And what happens is their audience grows, the opportunities increase. How many artists have been discovered off YouTube, for example? So, related to sexual energy, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. He actually, in the book, relates the two together. So, I'd like to explore that in a moment, love and sexual energy. So he says the transmutation of sex energy calls for the exercise of willpower to be sure, but the reward is worth the effort. The desire for sexual expression is inborn and natural. The desire cannot and should not be submerged or eliminated, as we discussed, but it can be given an outlet through forms of expression which enrich the body, mind, and spirit of humanity, and also everyone through creative expression, your business. So let's explore what he said here about the transmutation of sex energy calls for the exercise of willpower. See, we live in an interesting time. Today, we have access to information and everything easy, fast, click of a button. In an app, you can order food, you can do all kinds of things. It's way easier to get access to things. The fact that we have access to everything so easy nowadays, the honest question that I recommend each individual to ask is, are you doing anything to develop that part of your brain, which is called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, which is responsible for willpower? And the benefits of developing this part of your brain, you're able to stay committed to your tasks, you're able to remain consistent, you don't get distracted. As mentioned, you don't back down from a challenge, you embrace it. These are the kinds of benefits. You remain consistent going to the gym, you consistently do your prospecting sessions, and the inevitable result of prospecting, lead generation, client acquisition, ongoing business with existing clients, and optimization along the way is you generate your $1 million or $2 million or financial freedom. And again, I speak from experience on this. So this is a way to develop it. There are those that will find it very hard. They'll just seek physical expression of it, and they'll not harness that energy because this seems like a lot of work. yet I can honestly say it's well worth it. And as mentioned, there are individuals that do this, yet they might not call it this. For example, he says, a teacher who has trained and directed the efforts of more than 30,000 salespeople made the astonishing discovery that highly sexed individuals are the most efficient salespeople. The explanation is that the factor of personality known as personal magnetism is nothing more or less than sex energy. Highly sexed people always have plentiful supply of magnetism. So this is a very bold statement, and some might relate to this and some might not. I personally relate to it because I've seen the experiences myself, not only with myself, and I'm sharing with you my experience, but people that I've met and people that I've worked with over the years. And he also talks about in the book how it manifests. What can it look like? He says, in a handshake, the touch of hand indicates instantly the presence of magnetism. So when someone has beaming sexual energy or is radiating sexual energy, it is felt. It's undeniable. In the tone of voice, in the handshake, in the posture, the way they carry themselves, he even says the vibration of thought, the body, etc. And that is happening behind the scenes, we could say, unless you have an eye for it, you might not see it, yet people end up doing deals and moving forward with initiatives, and they might not know why. They'll say, I feel something, and I can't explain what it is, or I don't know what it is, towards this person. And as mentioned, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to turn into a dating relationship or a sexual relationship. It turns into client relationships, business relationships, because sexuality and sexual energy is part of the human fabric. It's part of humanity. And trying to suppress or repress it and get rid of it, there's no point. It's actually part of life. And so through sexual transmutation, you could take this powerful energy and transmute it. So let's get into a recap based on personal experience. Now, in 2004, I discovered this word transmutation through Think and Grow Rich. And it was very clear, and he articulated the point very directly. So again, he says, the meaning of the word transmute is, in simple language, the changing or transferring of one element or form of energy into another. So we're taking sexual energy, which is a powerful energy, rather than suppressing or repressing it or trying to get rid of it, you actually transmute it over to a creative expression, or in business, your innovation, your sales, your marketing, taking the steps. So another question I receive, I want to relate this over, is, hey, Joseph, this is why when you expect large sums of money, you are more than halfway there. And we're talking about the video that I released last week. You haven't seen it, I'll link in the description to it, on doing what you love to do. Which, by the way, he had mentioned love and sexual energy. He says sex alone is a mighty urge to action, but its forces are like a cyclone. They are often uncontrollable, or you say hard to control if one hasn't developed the ability to do so. It says, when the emotion of love begins to mix itself with the emotion of sex, the result is calmness of purpose, poise, accuracy of judgment, and balance. That's alchemy right there. Blending them to, harmonizing them together, reconciling them together. And so this question, when you expect large sums of money, you are more than halfway there. So you do what you love to do. What naturally happens is large sums of money. You'll naturally transmute your ideas into products and services that benefit people. It says, been expecting large sums of money for a while now. How does one end the resistance to that money? Well, what is the resistance? Is the resistance to putting out your offers? Is the resistance to talking about what you do with prospective clients? Is the resistance to prospecting? Is the resistance to whatever? It could be whatever. I talk about this in my subconscious mind program. Resistance is generated by beliefs. if you bring awareness to what these beliefs are, you can release identification to them. And what naturally flows is what you do, what you don't do, what you say, what you don't say, opportunities showing up. They're always there. They were always there in the first place. And everything appearing to be in harmony. Relationships, assets, opportunities naturally emerge. Everything flows. The resistance is just an opportunity to bring awareness to the belief that is generating that resistance so that you can release identification to it. So what specifically have you found that is generating the resistance? It could be a belief. Like, for example, in sales, and this is where we can tie it into sexual transmutation, some individuals might say, I'm afraid to get rejected. Well, there's resistance to this concept called rejection, more specifically, the interpretation of it. Consider that when making offers, some might be interested in what you're offering, some might not be. If they're interested, great. If they're not interested, great. If they're interested, then you've acquired a client. If they're not interested, then you have optimization data, which you can optimize and increase your conversions. So it's a win either way. So the individual might not like that the prospect says no to them, but they're just interpreting no as, for example, I have a problem, people don't love me, people don't accept me for who I am, or something like that. So the resistance is generated by that particular belief. Now, once they release identification to that belief, they naturally end up starting the conversations, and we can tie this into sexual energy. You'll just naturally walk over and start the conversation. You'll just naturally pick up the phone and start the conversation with the prospect. You'll go over to Facebook, message people, etc. And for example, when I built my IT business in 2009, I had an idea to reach out to an individual on Facebook. He was running a entrepreneurs meetup in Toronto. And at this time, I was practicing what we're talking about in this video. So as soon as the idea emerged, I just took the step. I didn't hesitate. I didn't doubt. I just took the step. But let's say I did not have the motivation or did not have that sexual energy or any kind of energy compelling me forward because the desire was suppressed or repressed. I might not have valued that particular insight. I might have had resistance to taking that. And there would be these doubts emerging in mind or whatever. Because sometimes it's not just the beliefs that arise these particular doubts in mind. They spawn from beliefs that are stored in the subconscious mind. But just the individual has no drive. And they just maybe, as a result, sit there and they feel lazy and they get an idea, and then the thoughts just appear in mind of why they should not move forward from it. Meanwhile, that idea arose from intuition. So there is resistance to listening to their intuition and taking the step. So what happened was, as a result of practicing all this, I took the step. We met up for coffee. We had a conversation. We worked a referral arrangement with each other. He was building websites, and I'm offering IT services. He referred me to a steel company, gave me a lot of business, hired my first contractor as a result. And while I was there was an accountant that was doing their accounting work. She asked us if we were interested in providing IT services for her. And we went into her organization, did the IT services for them, and then she started referring so many people to me that I said I didn't have the infrastructure to be able to support the amount of referrals because I was building everything, the infrastructure, the operations, etc. So I asked her to tone down on the referrals. So we could see that resistance is the result of belief identification. If I was identified with a particular belief that said I should not reach out to this person because what if they reject me? And if they reject me, then I'm going to feel really bad. I'm a bad person, or I'm not good enough, or something like that. That might have been really hard to take the natural step. So now, this is where I really like what he says: love and sex energy mixed together. So again, love and sex energy. So sex alone, And while a person may just, let's say, if they just chase sex, they may physically get themselves in all kinds of situations that they might not be happy with afterwards. And many of us have been through those kinds of situations. But yet, if they don't have that sexual energy there, it just feels maybe like they're just going through the motions or something like that for some individuals. So this is where the alchemy comes in of love and sex at the same time. So related to the video that I released last week, if you haven't seen it, I'll link in the description to it. I mentioned you do what you love to do. You naturally do what you love to do. What you love to do turns into a product, service, whatever it is that you offer. You take your knowledge, wisdom, expertise, reference experiences that you have as a result of doing what you love to do, and you can turn it into a fortune. Now, you have creative ideas. I'm going to take what I love to do and turn it into a fortune. But let's say the drive is not there. Well, consider, is there sexual energy there? If you can harness that sexual energy, you'll just naturally end up taking the steps, whatever the steps may be. The prospecting, the lead generation, the client acquisition, and you'll have a lot of fun, and it won't fill floor space. So you're doing what you love to do, and you have that energy compelling you forward. If you're involved with a relationship, when you genuinely love that individual and together you're cultivating sexual energy and you're both enjoying the physical aspect of it and also the creative aspect of it, then you have a wonderful relationship. So doing what you love to do plus sexual energy is a powerful combination. So in the earlier stages, this might be challenging. As mentioned, this is not something that I see talked about very often. It's either, physical expression or suppress and repress it. Yet it's a powerful energy that can be transmuted if you know how to transmute it. And if the individual lacks sexual desire, then they can actually, there are ways to stimulate that sexual desire and then transmute that. And with the combination of love and sex, you have literally what creates humanity and sustains humanity in a loving way, working well together. And the natural manifestation of that would definitely be doing what you love to do, a lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit. And you'll have a lot of fun along the way. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.